Farm Week is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Amy Taylor. Welcome to Farm Week. Artis has the week off.
Well, as the month of July races on, we're well past the midway point of this growing season in the state. A season pushed off schedule early in many fields by a late, wet spring.
Leighton, soybeans are one crop that in many cases ended up being planted over a longer than normal period of time in Mississippi due to weather changes. This means it's possible today to find a big range in bean crop development even within the same region of the state. And many acres of the soybeans will be harvested later than normal due to early season changes. At a recent field day at the Delta Branch Experiment Station, some MSU scientists talked about the challenges those beans that are late may face before they can be harvested.
So I would expect that they'll be in the field longer, and we may have more of a chance of field deterioration because of the rains picking up on us in the fall. We could run into some problems with phomopsis and seed quality because of the late planting that we had.
Meanwhile, Mississippi corn was planted mostly on time despite the unusual spring. However, Extension corn specialist Eric Larson says we've got a long way to go in terms of how the crop turns out. Larson told farmers and crop consultants at the field day that the rainy spell across many areas in the month of June came at the wrong time for corn.
Replenished soil moisture actually probably caused some soil saturation, stunting of the crop, and was detrimental during the time period of the year during the early reproductive stages when corn doesn't need to be stressed in that manner, whether it's deficits or excesses in this case as well.
There will be another field day in Stoneville in August to answer producer questions about the late season crop issues this year.
Agriculture is making a return as an important enterprise for the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. High tunnel production is being used to grow fresh produce commercially and to teach children about gardening and eating healthy. These were some of the first high tunnels built as Choctaw Fresh Produce began operation. Agriculture officially returned as an enterprise for the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. Bella Rosa and other varieties of tomatoes, along with basil and eggplant, were among the crops planted here. Supported by a 3-year federal grant and by the on-site expertise of the Extension Service, there will be a total of 18 high tunnels located around 6 different communities.
Grow local is something that's campaigned all over the United States, and the tribe has noticed that. And the tribe said, you know what? There are tangibles and intangibles to agriculture. We have the staff, we have the people. There's no downside to growing local produce, fruits and vegetables. So the tribe is looking back into agriculture, not just for the tangibles, but those intangibles as well.
Choctaw Fresh Produce has 4 full-time employees. In addition to providing jobs, the enterprise will provide income for the tribe through produce sales and serve as an educational tool for Choctaw children. Each set of high tunnels is located next to a school or child care facility such as this.
One of the goals that we envisioned was to put all these farms in the proximity of schools. That way we can provide educational opportunities to young tribal members, let them know where their food's coming from, how it's produced, and get them used to eating fresh produce right off the farm.
Dick Hoy says the tribal leaders are committed to embracing the positive aspects of agriculture in their Choctaw heritage in order to make a difference in the future economic and physical health of the tribe. From the Tucker community in Neshoba County, Mississippi, I'm Leighton Spann reporting.
We add a new weekly segment to our lineup today. Extension educator Natasha Haynes will be presenting research-based information related to food, nutrition, diet, and healthy lifestyles each week. This week's episode of Food Factor will be of particular interest to anyone whose vacation takes them out of the country. Natasha gives you some tips to keep the stomach bug from interrupting your travel plans.
Bienvenue, je m'appelle Natasha. Do you have plans to travel to an exotic location and soak up the sun? Something as simple as a sip of tap water or a swim in open water can put you at risk for diseases. In order to stay healthy and make the most of your vacation, consult the Center for Disease Control and Prevention website for information on traveling safety tips. Regardless of whether you're eating, travelers should wash their hands or use at least 60% alcohol-based hand sanitizers, especially after handling questionable objects. Food on vacation always looks appealing. Avoid uncooked foods like fruits, salads, vegetables, and unpasteurized milk and milk products. Only consume fruits and vegetables that you wash in clean water and peel yourself. To be sure you have safe food options, carry the following items with you when traveling: sealed bottled water or other sealed beverages, dried fruits or nuts, protein bars, or granola bars. Remember to use bottled water when brushing your teeth too. You want to spend your vacation seeing the sights, not staying in your hotel room sick. A little extra attention to detail while traveling around the world will help you enjoy the trip of a lifetime. It's time to make healthy food a factor in your life. Arrivederci.
Natasha says checking the CDC's Traveler Health page is always a good idea before taking any trip abroad.
If you've been outside around Mississippi, you may have noticed some bluish purple flowering trees in some locations. In this week's segment of Southern Gardening, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman will show us what a landscape showstopper the plant called Vitex really is.
There are some garden events that you can set your calendar on, and if it's June, the Vitex are blooming. Vitex are one of those plants that make gardeners and non-gardeners alike stop and take notice. Vitex, also known as chase tree, makes an outstanding small tree for the landscape. It typically is produced as a multi-stem tree and will eventually grow 15 to 20 feet tall and wide. The flowering period begins around Memorial Day on the Gulf Coast and soon afterwards in North Mississippi. The flowers are called panicles and are composed of many clusters of small individual flowers. Some varieties have panicles up to 18 inches long. The color can be a brilliant, nearly fluorescent blue and have the appearance of being hazy and cloud-like. They have a delicate fragrance described as being slightly floral and rose-scented. There's an improved selection called Shoal Creek that is worth asking for at the garden centers and nurseries. The spring-summer flush of flowers is more vigorous, and the flower color is a more intense and deeper blue than the regular species. But the flower color is not limited to bluish purple. There are some really pretty pink selections available, like Pink Sensation. The 4 to 6 inch long panicles are not as big as some other Vitex varieties, but the abundant clear pink panicles are produced all summer long. Vitex is the perfect plant for our hot southern summers. When planted in the full sun, it'll make the perfect specimen plant in your landscape. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Before we get to the markets, we'd like to invite you to share your opinion of Farm Week with us. You can do this either online or by telephone. It's your choice, but we want you to participate and let us know how we're doing.
To complete the survey online, go to our webpage, farmweek.msucares.com, and click on the survey link you will find there. Or you can call this toll-free telephone number and complete the survey with a live interviewer, 1-877-274-1600, extension 92. Again, that's 1-877-274-1600, extension 92.
All responses will be confidential. Your input is important to us, and will let us know how we can make Farm Week even better in the future. Time now for the markets with Layton, and the monthly crop and supply demand reports came out at midday on Friday the 11th.
That's right, Amy, and those new figures aren't really expected to help the soybean market, where the June 30th planted acreage numbers are still impacting prices in a very negative way. Meanwhile, the quarterly hogs and pigs report finds fewer hogs than the trade expected, as feeder cattle futures see sharp losses this week. The recent planted acreage report from the USDA continues to be a game changer for the U.S. soybean market, but not in a good way. The June 30th numbers have also sent corn prices lower. That report released over 10 days ago is likely to continue to overshadow even the new monthly supply demand numbers out on Friday the 11th. I talked with Extension Ag economist Brian Williams.
Well, the trade seemed to be looking for corn acreage to match the planting intentions report in March, but that didn't happen, did it?
Well, it wasn't too far off. The expectation was about 91.7, a little more than 91.7 million acres, and we ended up with 91.64 million acres. So it was close to expectations.
Now, of course, at the end of June and even into July, a lot of rain, especially in the upper Midwest, lower Midwest. Mm-hmm. How is that going to play? Are we making grain, or what perhaps may happen here?
Well, potentially. We're hitting a critical stage of development in a big chunk of the Corn Belt. A lot of the corn up there is just starting to get into that silking stage, and so going forward, we're really going to be watching the weather closely. But right now, everything looks to be in real good condition up there.
Well, given what happened, what the acreage report said, is this the time to make additional new crop sales? Any words of wisdom as far as sales here?
Well, I think it's something to think about. The other big thing is that a quarterly stocks report came out, and there's 132 million bushels more corn in storage than what was previously expected. So really, the pressures are somewhat downward for the corn market. So I think it's something to think about going forward.
All right, I guess we might say, though, the big story, the headline out of this acreage report is the soybean arena, and it really took it on the chin, didn't it?
It did. They were expecting soybean acres to be increased, but the report actually was far more acres than what was even expected. We're up from 81.5 million acres to now 84.8 million acres, so that's more than 3 million acres higher than the March report.
Well, I know we can't have a crystal ball necessarily as far as even the near-term future, but of course the market did take it on the chin initially, and mm-hmm. I guess we don't really know what the longer-term ramifications will be for soybeans.
No, the main thing we're watching is if these numbers hold true and using the current yields, that would be an extra 151 million bushels of soybeans production beyond what they were already expecting. So we're really going to be watching the July World Ag Supply and Demand report coming out in a couple of weeks to see how that impacts that, and then also watching the weather to see, I guess, what future movements in the market will be.
Our future movement here is to the trivia question for the week, and here's your first look. What president issued the proclamation designating a National Catfish Day in the U.S. each year? Your choices are A, Jimmy Carter, B, Ronald Reagan, C, Bill Clinton, or D, George W. Bush. I'll answer the question in a few minutes, so stay with us.
We're going to pause now for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the rest of the markets. Leighton Spann reports the jury is still out on whether this week's slump in feeder cattle prices is just a short-term correction or the beginning of a trend. And in the feature segment today, you'll meet a veteran who's turned to agriculture to heal the invisible wounds of war.
Hey, do you see something cool? Sure. When is brother coming home?
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. A short course on managing your family forest in Mississippi will take place Tuesday, July 15th. The location is the Yalobusha County Extension Office on Highway 7 at Coffeyville. The hours will be 8:30 a.m. to 2:15 p.m. The cost is $40 per person or $60 per couple. You'll learn about sustainable pine and hardwood management. Selling your timber and passing on the land to the next generation will be covered also. Please register as soon as possible. The annual Agronomy Field Day will take place at Mississippi State University's North Mississippi Research and Extension Center. That's on Highway 145 at Verona. The date is Thursday, August the 7th. Growers should meet at the conference building at the nearby Lee County Agri Center. Field tours will leave from there. The hours are 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Lunch will be served. There's no registration fee. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
In livestock, the quarterly Hogs and Pigs report was recently released by the USDA. Analyst Alan Brugler says the figures help clarify the issue of how many animals may have been lost to the PED virus.
They found a few less than the trade was looking for as far as the published estimates. The trade was looking for a little over 97% of year ago for all hogs, and the actual number was 95%. The market hog numbers were also down approximately 5%. And the breeding herd, the sow herd, was expected to be higher, 101 or so, was actually only 99% and change. So all in all, fewer hogs than what the trade had stated it was looking for going into the report.
Tuesday of this past week, prices across the entire cattle complex began to turn soft. DTN analysts say it's uncertain if this retraction will be enough to set a top in the beef sector and start the price trend lower. Analyst Don Roos says this week's market action in cattle definitely puts out the caution flags for producers.
These markets, when they go vertical, you have to be very careful because that's not a solid market. A solid market is one that, builds over time or breaks over time. And this is a market very much like corn was when it went to $8. Shoots up and you have to be careful. It gets overbought and anything can happen.
Before our feature story, let's answer the trivia quiz for you. It was President Ronald Reagan who proclaimed National Catfish Day, so B is the correct choice.
In our feature segment today, a Nebraska war veteran finds life after the military in agriculture. Market to Market's Josh Bittner reports on one Iraq war veteran who made the transition from warrior to worker by starting his own farm.
Rural America could be considered fertile ground for patriotism. The ties of close-knit communities foster certain sentiments about people, the land, and hard work. And for some, protecting this way of life is more than just an option or an expectation. It's a given.
I was done with high school in 1995. 6 days later, I was standing tall in the yellow footprints at Parris Island, South Carolina for Marine Corps boot camp. My mom was a Marine, and so I told the recruiters I wouldn't sign anything unless they had in writing I could go to Parris Island and graduate from the same place my mom did 20 years prior.
Dan Romas pursued a military career that took him across the globe. But wherever the young Nebraskan was stationed, his thoughts would eventually turn to home.
One of my favorite memories as a child growing up in Lincoln is every other summer. The folks would take me and my younger brother and sister and we'd go up and visit grandma and the uncles on the farm in North Dakota. They had chickens roaming about the farmstead, and it was like an Easter egg hunt every day we were out there.
Reminiscing over similar rural traditions helped some homesick troops make it through long deployments.
We could have been talking about playing cards or about any number of things, but the common thread that we had was agriculture.
Once back stateside, Romas's dreams of farm life began to germinate. Stationed in New York State, he struck a deal with a local dairyman to help milk 80 cows in exchange for hunting rights. But the soldier soon found more fulfillment in work than play.
I really enjoyed that. You know, it was early days, long hours, but there's something about working on a farm that I think brings the best out in people because it teaches a very good work ethic.
While he loved agriculture, Romus prioritized his military service and the benefits it could provide. Once his initial commitment to the Marines concluded, he enlisted in the Army and earned a college degree. But while pursuing a master's, the Cornhusker's educational path took a detour.
I was doing research for about a year and a half before I got the phone call calling me up for deployment to Iraq.
Shortly after arriving in the war-torn country, Romus commanded a team during a massive troop buildup that came to be known as the Surge.
I was more than happy to answer the same call that my great uncle and grandpa did during World War II, my dad did during the Vietnam War era.
And while the controversial addition of 20,000 American troops in 2007 has been cheered by some for stabilizing Iraq, the long-term impact of such tactics can be a more elusive calculation.
There's always, you know, those invisible wounds. It's very tough on everybody mentally when you lose a couple people, when you see things that the vast majority of the world's population doesn't see. You know, it can be tough to deal with sometimes.
Healthcare and other support for wounded warriors is administered nationwide by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Doctors say for conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder, engagement is key.
We really hate to see stigma or misconceptions prevent people from seeking treatments. There are effective treatments for it, and getting out with farming and other social activities is one piece of effective treatment for PTSD.
When I'm out here, it's a way for me to detach or forget about everything outside these walls, outside of this farm. It keeps me busy, it keeps me active, and it you know, helps me to move on.
Owning his own agricultural operation turned out to be just what the doctor ordered for Romus. And by networking through the VA, he found a variety of state agencies and other groups that help veterans realize their entrepreneurial dreams.
There's a good financial reason for doing what I'm doing now. Then there's the memories as a kid gathering up the eggs, being around the chickens on the farm in North Dakota.
I think it's been a great help for him to have him feel busy and be something that he's interested in and something that can be a service to other people.
A $6,000 grant and a $35,000 microloan covered the startup costs for Romus's Prairie Pride Poultry. And now 3 coops on 3 acres of land outside York, Nebraska, house a flock of 600 Rhode Island Reds. The winter hardy breed was able to withstand the frigid weather and began producing eggs early this year.
Our motto here at Prairie Pride Poultry is happy hens lay healthy eggs.
Embracing a strategy of sustainability, Romus's free-range chickens aren't fed antibiotics or hormones, and they're given the space to roam and eat grass and bugs. Sticking to his values has allowed the veterans operation to produce an economically viable product.
We want our business plan to be a true roadmap for business success.
Business specialist Carol Blood of Nebraska Self-Employment Services gave the green light to Prairie Pride Poultry. But Blood pulls no punches with disabled veterans and is quick to note the pitfalls and potential of being their own boss. Romus continues to receive business advice from the agency, which boasts an impressive track record in assessing the feasibility of new ventures.
Our success rate is around 71%. National success rate for people without disabilities, about 33%, so almost 3 times the national average.
And that success resonates with Prairie Pride Poultry. Dan Romus's hard work has garnered national recognition via point-of-sale branding on products produced by veteran farmers. And he has advice for fellow veterans considering a career in agriculture.
Hey, chick, chick. Hey, chick, chick. You have to go out and meet them halfway. You have to seek it out, do your research, be diligent, and, you know, keep at it. There they come. And when you knock on their door, they're going to open it. and they're going to help you. And I'm living proof of that. They opened the door when I went knocking.
For Market to Market, I'm Josh Bittner.
You can watch this story on Dan Romas on our Farm Week website. That's farmweek.msucares.com. You can also watch Farm Week stories on our Farmweek USA Facebook page and YouTube.
Well, we are at the end of this edition of Farm Week. On our next show, the outgoing, outstanding Mississippi Logger of the Year.
Kent Winstead of Philadelphia is a third-generation logger, but he doesn't live in the past. Winstead uses modern forestry techniques along with hard work to keep damage to a minimum.
And in southern gardening, lantana. It's a great low-maintenance plant that attracts butterflies.
Grandma's pumpkin patch produces.
And if you would like further information on any Farm Week story, or you want to suggest a story to us, here's how to get in touch. Our snail mail address, Box 9625, Mississippi State, Mississippi 39762. Box 9625, Mississippi State, Mississippi 39762. And our telephone number, 662-325-2262, 662-325-2262. You can also contact us through your local Mississippi State University Extension Service County office.
For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Amy Taylor.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.